Friday here at the NFL Combine, right here on Radio Row. Erin Summers alongside Luke McCown and Bucky Brooks from NFL Network. You're a popular guy this week because you're the one that is ranking all these players. Every email that I get, it's like, well, Bucky likes this guy at this place. How is it for you?
It's different, right? Because this has become like a marquee event. Everyone loves the draft. Everyone loves kind of turning the calendar forward to think about which players are going to be the stars of tomorrow. So it's fun kind of speculating and projecting. It's fun catching up with like some of your old friends from the business.
Yep.
And then dealing with all the agents. And all the agents like, hey, do my guy solid. And I'm like, I don't really know who your guy is. But so there's a lot of that. But overall it's a fun time because this is the only time that all the football people are in one location. So it's part big event in terms of the Combine, but it's really like a catch-up and a convention all in one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, talk about the uniqueness of the Combine and the setting that it provides. You were here some 30 years ago. I was here 20 years ago, 21 years ago. Talk about the uniqueness of how it's changed, how it's morphed into what it's become today.
Yeah, it's a big deal now. Back in the day, man, you talk about 30 years ago, it was like it was going to Never Land. You didn't know what you were walking into.
Right.
You didn't know the drills that you were doing. You didn't really understand the magnitude of the event back then, how important it was to your draft status and those things. But now, because NFL Network, has made it a TV show, everyone is prepared for all the things that they want to do. And so it's hard to surprise the players. If anything, the way evaluators look at players, if you don't perform well here, if you don't kind of know what's going on and you bomb.
What were you doing after the season?
Like what? Yeah. Like it speaks to your lack of preparation and those things. But I still think it's one of the best things to kind of be a part of because you get a chance to see guys continue to take steps closer to their dreams.
Right. Well, let's jump right into your mock. You've got us taking Jalen Walker.
Okay. Yeah, Georgia.
From Georgia.
Versatile linebacker. So the thought is when you think about Jalen Walker and the way the league is playing, we're seeing more teams try and use players like a Michael Parsons.
Yes.
Where they're the second-level hybrid. They can play linebacker. They can play edge rusher. They can I think the word that I've been hearing is points of entry when it comes to being able to rush the passer.
That's right.
Well, Jalen Walker is someone who can do that. You'll see him play off-ball linebacker at Georgia. You can see him come off the edge and have a sack presence. And when you think about the age of the Saints defense, you would like to think that, okay, we need to find some dynamic athletes that can play on that level. And also Brandon Staley coming over. He had a player in Derwin James who he used as a hybrid. He's used hybrid players before. So to me, it's kind of like a perfect fit.
Yeah, he used Khalil Mack in a very versatile role. He used Bosa in a very versatile role. And the majority of football now is played in 11 personnel where you need a guy that can stand up and rush and drop out and cover, right? And so a guy that has experience playing outside backer, has experience with his hand in the dirt, rushing from the edge, it can be a valuable asset to
and
the
also,
defense.
when you're thinking about it, not necessarily that the Saints needed a culture change, but when you think about what you get from players coming from Georgia and how hard it is and just the competitive nature that is created in that environment, you get a chance to bring that over. A lot of times when you're a new coach, you have a brand new coaching staff. You try and flip the culture internally. And sometimes you do it by your own presence and the new standards that you create. But a lot of times you do it with the people that you bring in.
Yeah, it's been interesting talking to Kellen Moore and even the front office. They are really big on the player interviews here this week and how that could affect their locker room. They want to find the right people to bring in. I think they're on the same page there. But with the new staff, how do you see what maybe we've traditionally seen from the Saints and how they draft changing?
Yeah, it's tricky, right? Because new head coach, new schemes, they have different demands in terms of the type of players they want, but the front office and the coach and the scouting staff remains the same. So how do they change their eye? How do they change what the preferences are? That takes a lot of dialogue and communication. Because Kellen was hired so late, obviously they won the Super Bowl when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. They're still probably having some of those conversations. So this is the first time that everyone has been able to get together and have meetings and talk about, hey, here's what we like at wide receiver. This is what we would like to have in a tight end and a running back, offensive line, all of those things. And as they continue to work through that, you'll see the board kind of shift and you hear different names kind of pop up associated with the Saints as they kind of settle in to the type of player they want to bring in.
Yeah, Jeff Ireland said that the way the defense is going to be, it opens up a lot of players for them on the board. There's more people they might be looking at.
Yeah, because with Brandon Staley, Brandon Staley is a disciple of Vic Fangio.
Yes.
And what he would like to do is kind of do some different things, play a little umbrella coverage over top, do some things when it comes to the front. You can play with some bigger guys, but some smaller guys. And really, when you go all the way back to when he was first coordinated with the L.A. Rams, they did play with a lot of smaller guys. And it does change what you can look for, because whether we're talking about hybrids or the big bodies on the front point of attack, it's a lot easier to find little guys than big guys. And if you can find a way to play good defense with those, it does open up the board. Yeah,
talk about just the way that the influence of what the Eagles did in the Super Bowl, certainly defensively, to a juggernaut of an offense, or what has been over the last couple of years, what they did defensively, and how that's going to change everybody else's view of how to play defense in the NFL.
Well, I think it's not only necessarily what they did in the Super Bowl, but I would say it's the construction of the team.
Yeah.
If you look at how the Eagles they've gone to 2 Super Bowls in the last 4 years. They've done it while flipping their roster. They are a team that drafts early, a year or two early, before they really need a player.
Yeah, that's a great point.
They always invest in the offensive and defensive lines, which gives them an opportunity to dominate. And if you hear them they say you only invest top picks in 2 types: in the trenches, offensive, defensive line, and guys that can score points.
Wow.
So if you think about guys that can score points, that'll be wide receivers and running backs.
Yep.
But it also will be like your guys in the trenches that can dominate O-line, D-line. I think a lot of people will kind of look at how they've been able to build their team and how they're so young and so deep and so talented, and see if they can steal some of those ideas and use that blueprint.
Yeah, so what are some of the other holes that the Saints need to fill in this draft this year?
The thing about the Saints, and I feel like they've said this for years, like the defense is an aging defense. They're long in the tooth at every level. And I love Cam Jordan, but at some point you got to have like the heir apparent, the next one to do it. Look, DeMario Davis, another one. Like you got to have someone who can play the second. Tyrann Mathieu. So each of those 3 positions are positions that are core positions, because you got to have a pass rusher. You need to have a traffic cop in the middle of the defense at the second level, and then you have to have a playmaking safety in this league to be able to get it done. I think those are holes that need to be addressed. But really, it's Kellen Moore comes over, you naturally want to put your hands on the offense and figure out, okay, can we solve this offensive line? I know they've kind of made a soft statement about Derek Carr and those things, but you got to get a quarterback of the future in the building if you don't believe that Spencer Rattler or one of the other guys is that guy. So to me, I think it really is a best player available draft for the Saints. They can take just the best player in every round and live with it, because I don't think it's necessarily a needs-based draft. It's, hey, let's upgrade the talent on the roster. We'll figure out how to play with them.
100%.
Yeah, it was interesting listening to GM Mickey Loomis. He said that we may keep all 9 of our picks this year and really load up on some young talent.
Yeah, look, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. At the end of the day, and look, this roster is deep when it comes to like trench warriors and those things. It's not as deep at wide receiver. There's some solid talent at defensive back and in running back. I think what you want to do is you want to be selective with the players that you're bringing in. You want to make sure you nail it with good players, regardless of position. The only way to build a championship caliber team is you got to load it with really good players. And as much as you want to kind of address needs, you still want to make sure that the players are blue chip players, because the teams that win championship at a championship level tend to have 8 to 12 blue chip players, meaning guys 100%. That you eventually can see or envision being Pro Bowl caliber players. If you get those kind of players on your team, you can figure out how to do it.
100%. On the offensive side, who should the Saints target?
Well, it depends. Like I wouldn't see an offensive player early, but I do think, when we're talking about addressing the wide receiver position, you can go and add more weapons there. The thing about the wide receiver position, like you have good players, but I can't say that this is like a star-laden draft. So you talked about the guy before we got on air, Isaiah Bond.
Yeah.
He can be a really good player, but he's like a second or third round player. Matthew Golden, I would say, is like a second round player. So you want to identify those kind of guys that can come in and make it happen. I would say like tight end. Like to me, I think the board is wide open for the Saints to do whatever they want. Tight end, running back, wide receiver. I know Alvin Kamara is coming back, but at some point you got to get the next great one. And this is a year where in the second or third round you can get a great running back.
Absolutely.
You take a look back, kind of a big picture, not just on the Saints, but the way that the draft may play out. You think we're going to see a lot of surprises or a lot of movement?
You know, the thing is, there's always a surprise on the first day when it comes to the quarterback situation. As much as everyone has kind of poo-pooed on the quarterback class, and it's not like what last year's class. I remember last year, people didn't think last year's class was great, and then Bo Nix emerged as a player in the year, and then was like, oh, that class was great. Yeah, but we didn't talk about Bo Nix. And then I remember the outrage when Sean Payton took Bo Nix at 12. To me, it's similar in terms of everyone knows Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward will probably be the first two off the board in whatever order. But now it's identifying the third one. Is it Jackson Dart? Is it Jalen Milroe? Do Will Howard and Cal McCord get into that mix? And then if they do get into that conversation, is that a first-round conversation or a second-round conversation?
Right.
All of those things kind of factor in. But it's a hard position to evaluate. The only thing you can do is keep taking swings at the position and hope that it lands.
That's right.
But when you looked at the playoffs, I think 7 of the 8 that were in like the quarterfinals, they were first-round picks.
First-round picks.
So you have to expend the money. Now the thing is, the pick has to match the performance and the production of the player. So you can't stretch it, but you have to find a player that you deem worthy of being a first-round pick, and then you got to take it.
Yeah, and in today's day and age, with the salary structures for rookie players the way that it is now, it gives you a little more leeway in taking a young player early. You know, we used to say it's going to set you back 2, 3, 4 years if you take a quarterback in the top 10 and you miss. And it's not necessarily the case anymore because of the salary structure for rookie players.
Yeah, you should be bold. And the thing that you would like to have is everyone on the same page. Ownership, everyone within the building, but also your fans understand that we're going to take swings and misses at quarterbacks. We're going to step to the plate and we're going to keep cycling them through. So let's not overreact if we put the quarterback out there and he's not good. Like you think about the roller coaster, the carousel that the Saints had last year with Spencer Rattler, was it Jake Havener playing?
Havener,
they're going back and forth and everyone's outraged. I'm like, well, hold on. Spencer Rattler's a 5th-round pick. Like the expectation shouldn't be that he's going to come and have it all solved. But once you draft a quarterback, whenever we say it, no matter what we say, hey, he needs time. When we put him on the field, the expectation is that he's going to be a Super Bowl quarterback.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, free agency-wise, do you think that there are a lot of people that you could get better with? Because I've heard that they feel like it's kind of a weak free agency class as well.
It is in terms of like the O-line, right? There's no one that you can expect to be a guy that's going to come in. When Kansas City locked up Trey Smith and said they were going to put him on a franchise tag, that kind of took the marquee trench player off the board. I mean, they're talking about Cam Robinson being available, but Cam Robinson was traded last year in the middle of the season from Jacksonville to Minnesota. Like, it's hard to think that, oh, okay, now we're going to go and back up the Brinks truck and give him a load of cash. It's tough because the quarterback market is going to dictate some of the free agent market and which guys go and how they play musical chairs there. But really, there aren't many, like, blue-chip names that are going to hit the open market, and that's kind of the way it should be. Your best players shouldn't hit the market. You should pay to do that. And so that's why you hear all these team builders talk about draft and developing is the best way to do it, because you can't predict which kind of blue chip players are going to shake free when it comes to free agency.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's your favorite drill here to watch?
Favorite drill? I think everyone likes the 40 because it's more like a track meet. For me, as a young scout, they always talked about, hey, look at the jumps, because even though we can't, like, you sit in the stands, you can see them from afar. But the jump should correlate with the 40 time.
That's right.
So guys that run fast should jump high and jump far. So a guy that's going to run in the 4.4 range, his vertical should be high 30s or 40.
Yeah.
And if it's not like that, then it becomes an issue like, well, wait a minute, like that doesn't make sense. So I like looking at those drills. And then some of the position-specific drills, like with the DBs, like how they flip and turn, how they do those things. I think at the wide receiver position, it's really hard because you know it as a quarterback. You throwing the guys that you don't know. Everyone runs a curl route differently. Everyone expects the ball to be there. But there is something to watching how guys naturally catch the ball, because we talk about wide receivers running fast and those things, but Hall of Fame executive Bill Polian used to talk about, can they catch? And it's one of those underrated things when you're looking at guys like, can they legitimately just catch the ball? Like, do they catch it properly with their hands, or do they have a tough time with it? Because if they struggle here, more than likely they're going to continue to struggle, because it's something that should be very natural. And if it's an unnatural deal, it's really hard to improve upon this skill.
Yeah.
Love watching these young men come out and compete. And I was a 4th-round pick coming out of Louisiana Tech. I couldn't wait to get here and stand.
I
beside.
couldn't tell that you were from Louisiana at all.
Yeah, no.
Well,
I'm from East Texas. But
Can you edit the country out
yeah,
of my
please edit the country out.
It's just funny.
It's all good. But I couldn't wait to stand on the field with the Ben Roethlisbergers and the Eli Mannings and show them what I got. Like that. And so, what's your take on guys that come here and decide not to participate?
So it's hard because I can see it from both perspectives.
Yeah.
I can see it from a player standpoint where you're like, especially if you played a long time, you're like a fourth-year player. You played 50 games. You're like, hey, man, you've seen all the tape.
Yeah.
Like, there's not much more that I can do it. And it's the horror stories of someone getting hurt.
Yes.
So I always worry about that part of it. But then the other part, from a scouting standpoint, when you have like depth at a certain position, you want to see those guys go back to back. And I want to see the best guys perform back to back to back, and if they feed off of one another, and who rises to the challenge, who falls by the wayside. Because some of the pressure that we try to create here, manufacture here, is supposed to give us an idea on what you're going to be like as a pro. So can you perform your best in adverse situations? Because everyone knows this is not ideal. You're not sleeping much. You're all over town. You're doing a bunch of things that are uncommon. You're probably going to have a better performance in your pro day, but are you willing to kind of grind it out and give us just the best that you have on that day?
How do you handle the stress of it?
Yeah. Because that's really what it is, because it is how are you when you're not at your best? Well, if I can get a gauge of where you are when you're not at your best, I can probably feel really good about you when you really have it together.
That's right.
Did y'all go through interviews with teams when you were here?
Yeah, now we did that. Now it was in the train. They used to have like the old
train
hotel,
station.
the train station.
Yeah.
And then they had the main thing. And so over at the train station were the informal interviews where everyone is just grabbing you and making you sit down and you got to talk to everyone. And it's not a time limit.
No.
Like they can just hold you and talk to you. And then you had the formal interviews that were like 15 minutes or whatever. But I just remember it was just chaotic. It was a lot of talking, a lot of conversation. And back then, thankfully, before like now HR is tuned in, like the questions were random as all get out. They could be anything. Yeah, it's now.
Remember?
I mean, they would just ask you all kinds of stuff. Are you, if you could be an animal, you're a cat or a dog, like stupid stuff. Like they've gone away from like those kinds of questions, and a lot of people now in those 15 minutes they make it really just about ball. Like when you step into the room, they pop on the tape, and it is all about ball. Because when you really think about the process, you're only with the guys a handful of times, and it doesn't even amount to maybe 48 hours total. You're there on a school visit where the area scout may talk to him, may not. You bring him in for a top 30 visit. You meet with him here at the Combine, and then a random occurrence via Zoom. That's all you know. And so you're making multi-million-dollar decisions without really knowing the kid. So it's a lot to assess. It's a lot to try and figure out when you're projecting how a guy not only is going to play, but how he's going to fit into your locker room.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I got drafted by Cleveland, but the worst meeting that I had was with the Cleveland Browns, and they were notorious for taking you to the back room. They had like a suite and then another door, and you go to the back room, and there's the head coach and the GM, and then a sports psych, like heat lamp and everything, like right here. It's like
so you,
put
so
you
you sweat
just,
a little bit.
Oh man, stressing you.
Well, I mean,
and so
like,
Butch Davis recruited me to the University of Miami out of high school. I ended up going to little old Louisiana Tech. Right, very first question. Why'd you choose Louisiana Tech over Miami? Golly, man, that's put me on the spot. But
the heat lamp.
The heat
Yeah,
lamp.
we want to see if you're sweating.
Yeah.
There's some stories where we can't disclose the names, but where guys have taken prospects on the golf course.
Oh yeah.
And golfed rounds with them because your golf, like getting tee box. That first tee box is nerve wracking for everybody, but can you keep your stuff together when it's pressurized when you're playing with those things? So there are little things that you do to kind of see how guys react, but this has really become a very sterile environment when it comes to those things. They try and keep it as much about ball as possible unless you have egregious character concerns.
Yeah, sure.
You try not to waste a lot of time dealing with that part and more so about who the person is and how are we going to get you to play your best ball at the next level.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That's cool.
Insight. Love it. Always to have you here. It was great having you in New Orleans recently for the HBC Legacy Bowl as well.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun. Right at the beginning of Mardi Gras. That was a
Super
lot.
important, right? Super important.
I mean, it was. But Mardi Gras was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot going on. It was a lot going on at one time. I don't know if they should schedule it. Like, there was a lot going on to manage, but it was fun.
You weren't out there in the parades?
You didn't see me on the floor? you didn't see me on the floor?
Did you go home with a lot of beads?
Yeah, a lot of beads.
A lot of beads.
A lot of beads. I got a friend I walked away with a lot of beads.
All right. Well, good for you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.